Welcome back to Your 1230, the only podcast where our guests tell their story with the help of 12 questions in just 30 minutes. I'm your host, Mike Salitro, and today we are thrilled to be joined by Roger Pearson. With 50 years of experience in building or managing businesses, with the last 2 decades, Roger has also been working as a master tax advisor, IRS enrolled agent, and tax instructor to help small businesses structure their firms in an effort to increase their profits and become better business owners. Roger, welcome. We are really excited to be speaking with you tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So I actually want to start there at the end. Why does a small business owner become a better owner if they understand tax, if they understand where I'm answering my own question here, if they understand where the money in their business is going?
The basically thing, and what a lot of people don't understand when they first get into business, is that probably your biggest business expense is how much tax you pay. And when you're first going in, like a sole proprietor and just starting out, a lot of people don't realize that they can pay up to 50% of their net profit in taxes. And that comes as quite a shock the first time they have to sit down and do their taxes.
Yes, I think most business owners would be reluctant to hand over that amount. And taking a step back in that bio, I see the term IRS enrolled agent and master tax advisor. I know that's serious stuff. What does that mean, and how do you let small business owners know that you can use that information, use that expertise to help them?
Well, an IRS enrolled agent is actually like a PhD in the tax world.
Okay.
There's only certain types of occupations and certifications that are allowed to represent people before the IRS in audits and things like that. CPAs automatically can, lawyers automatically can, and there's a couple others, but that's by their profession. Enrolled agent is the only certification that you actually have to know tax knowledge. You actually have to pass three-hour IRS tests to be an enrolled agent. You have to take about 25 continuing education hours per year to maintain it. And you have to renew it every 3 years. And if you don't have those CEs in there, they take it away from you. So it's actually, into comparison like that, I mean, like a CPA can also represent you before the IRS, but they're only required to take tax classes when they become a CPA. They're not required to take tax classes as part of their continuing education after that. So that's one thing I always tell people they should watch for when hiring a CPA.
So that's good to know, the continuing education piece, because as you reference, it's an ongoing process, especially with tax, something that changes not only by jurisdiction, by geography, but on an annual or regular basis. So how does one, I'm assuming that you have the entire country as a geography. How do you stay on top of tax changes, and how can small business owners who may not work with someone with your level of expertise, how can they know what tax information they should be aware of, and more importantly, if they have a CPA, to make sure they're doing the right things?
A lot of people, they think, well, I'll just go out. I don't have to know all this stuff. I'll just go out and hire an accountant or a CPA or somebody like that, and they'll just take care of everything for you. But you have to realize that when you do that, you need to be interviewing a CPA. You need to be interviewing an accountant, because they're dealing with your livelihood and your money, and they may be more interested in, and I shouldn't say this probably, but some of them are more interested in just next, and here's my bill, than they are you as a tax preparer. So you need to be able to, interview a CPA or an accountant the same way you would as hiring an employee. If you had a plumbing business and you were hiring a plumber, you'd sure sit down and you'd interview them, because you knew the plumbing business, so you know what to ask them, correct? And one of the biggest problems in this country as far as small business, and I love small business, I think it's the pinnacle of what you can do, but that's just me. And you need to learn it as much as anything else. Unfortunately, in school, they don't teach you small business. They don't teach you accounting. They don't teach you taxes. They don't teach you how to organize your business and so forth. You just kind of have to learn that on your own. And the first time people usually do that, they usually end up losing a lot of money the first few years because of it. And so that's why I've kind of made it my mission, after over 23 years of helping small business people now do this to put the information out there that people can and absorb it and learn it, so that when you do go to answer that interview that account or CBA, you know what to ask them. You know how to interview them. You want to know if you want them on your team, because that's essentially what you're doing. You should find somebody that wants to sit down with you and discuss your business, because every one of my business clients, I have to actually, to do a good job for them, I have to sit down and I have to interview them, and I have to find out how their business works, where they're coming from, where they want to go, so that I can guide them properly through the tax structures that are available. Because a lot of people, you hear this, oh, these big corporations, they don't pay anything in taxes. Well, there's a lot of tax laws and a lot of tax loopholes and different things that you can use, depreciation and so forth, that the small businessman can use the same thing that the large ones use, and reduce their taxability either. But you don't know that unless you educate yourself.
So as you go through that, I'm just remembering how daunting tax and accounting information is. How did you get started, and how did you say, this is what I want to do, or this interests me? Do you remember?
Well, that's a it's the twists and turns of life.
Okay.
During the 90s, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the 90s yet, but during the 90s, since I'm in my 70s, I remember this. In the 90s, I went through it was the decade of downsizing. All the corporations were downsizing. And I was downsized out of 3 different management positions in 10 years. And you just get yourself up, you're making a nice salary, blah, blah. And then they say, well, we've eliminated your position 3 times in 10 years. And I says, I don't know if I want to go back into the corporate world. So my sister-in-law says, well, why don't you go take this tax course? I'll even pay for you to go. And so I did. I said, well, I'll do something until I figure out what I want to do. And I found that I loved it. I just found I loved it. And the more years I loved it, the better. And then right out of the chute, because I had a small business background, I wanted to be able to help small business people. So I kind of specialized in that over the years. And I worked myself up to the enrolled agent status, and where I can do the most complicated tax returns for business people.
That's a good story, and I mean, obviously not the way you want to start. 3 times in 10 years is probably too much, but you found what you were interested in, and helping small business owners. So that's wonderful. Uh, I remember I'm a lawyer by background, and I find tax intimidating and difficult to navigate. So I will put that out there. And I specifically remember I took accounting for attorneys in law school, and the most disheartening thing I found was that tax and accounting veered toward more of an art than a science. I thought if there was one thing that I could believe, was that numbers, accounting would just be a science. I could just plug in the information here. And as you reference, it is very much an art, that it's all in the gray and depends on how you interpret it, what your situation is, and there are those loopholes and ways through it. Uh, so how did you kind of navigate saying that this stuff that changes all the time, these dense books of information as far as what I should be taxed on, what I should be paying? I like jumping through these loopholes. I like understanding where I can save my clients money. And what was it specifically that, or what is it specifically that you enjoy helping small business owners kind of figure out and navigate?
The way the way I view taxes is in somewhat a game to me, in that it's me against the IRS. How to use the IRS rules to win for my client against them. And that's what makes it exciting for me. It's just like I had one client this year, came in, Schedule C, first year at home shift, did phenomenal. But I did her taxes and she was going to owe $6,500. But I restructured her legally and financially, and used some loopholes. And instead of $6,500, she got a $3,500 refund, and she was a little bit happy with me. But those are the things that make me excited, when I can go have somebody sit out in front of me and do that for them. That's the type of knowledge I want to put out there.
Well, that's a $10,000 swing, so that would make sense that I should be very excited.
Yeah.
You mentioned the legal formation piece. Is that something you handle as well, or how do you how do you kind of help your clients through that?
Well, the thing about I run into people and they say, "Oh, my brother-in-law told me I should be an S corporation." And I said, "Why?" Now, I don't know. because I'd save on my taxes, yes, but you don't necessarily want to do that up front because there's a cost to that. There's a cost to that. Paying the state, all states you got to pay. They run from 150. Some states charge $800 a year to be an S corporation in their state. Okay, then you've got the cost of counting, the cost of the added cost of doing an extra tax return, a separate tax return. So it can cost you anywhere. The overhead is just anywhere from $500 to $2,000 in extra charges just to go into that. Well, when you're starting out with a business, you probably don't have that much extra money laying around. So you're probably going to do a sole proprietorship. But a good tax preparer is going to guide you then and tell you, look at your statistics, your spreadsheets and so forth, and say, okay, now it's time to go from this legal format to the next legal format, you know? And because you're now making enough money that it makes sense to do that.
That's a good answer, because I think a lot of people stop at, my brother-in-law told me the S corp was the thing to do. Don't ask why, don't know why, and don't understand that there might be costs associated with that either are too early on in the life or just unnecessary for the business. So that's a good story to kind of illustrate that point. You mentioned and walk us through the tax ramifications and the legal formations. Tell us about the college course that you created that helps inform small business owners what they should be looking for, whether or not they have someone on their staff or if they brought someone in to do their taxes for them.
Well, what everybody needs to know if they really want to run a small business, or even if they want to go on a management track of somebody else's business, the more you know about it, the better job you're going to do either for yourself or for your employer. Okay. Expect for your employer, because when the opportunity comes along, you're going to know what they're talking about and you're going to be able to grasp it. As far as yourself, what I did is I sit down and I took over 2 decades of experience in working with small businesses and said there's 3 things that you need to know to build a solid foundation of your business. The first one is you need to know all the different legal formats between sole proprietors, corporations, or partnerships. Okay, and the differences. There's 5 different kinds of partnerships, you know, and most people come in that's from they don't do a partnership agreement, which is just really a bad thing. But the second thing is how do you organize your paperwork? Because your tax preparer is only going to do as good a job as you do keeping your paper and keeping the statistics for them to work with. Plus, the other reason you need to organize it properly is you need to know what your net profit is at any one time, any day of the year. You need to know what your net profit is. And the third part of that is knowing how the tax laws affect every single legal system out there. Okay, so I sit down and wrote the scripts for all of this. I videotaped the scripts for all of this. I put all the supporting documentation in there, downloads and things that somebody can go through and they can learn all the different formats, all the ways you should be organizing paper, what you should be keeping track of, and what the consequences are of those decisions that you make. Now, when you know all of that, number one, you're going to be able to really do a good job of interviewing an accountant or CPA to work with you. Not only that, but you're going to understand when to change from one legal format to another. So if somebody comes along and says, hey, I got this great thing, you want to be a partner, you know? Well, if you've taken the time to go and study partnerships, the 5 different kinds of partnerships that there are, depending on which state you're at, how to do a partnership agreement. A partnership agreement is like a prenuptial. It states what's going to happen if you all have an argument and want to dissolve the partnership, because I've seen some really nasty fights because there wasn't one. If you know that, then you know how to protect yourself, you know how to structure it, and you know exactly what you're stepping into. You know, you don't have time. When opportunities come, oftentimes you don't have time to sit there and study and everything else, and the opportunity's going to be gone by then. But if you've pre-studied and learned all this stuff in advance, then you're going to know, no matter what life throws you in the business world, you're going to have a basis of knowledge that you know how to handle it.
Excellent. And where can we find this course if I wanted to take it, or if I wanted to refer it to the small business owners that I work with?
I put up a special URL. It's called protectingmybusiness.com. I also have a free report that I put together, which is kind of an outline of all of this information. And you find that at seagulltechnologies.com/free.
Excellent. So we will post those in the show notes for sure. We started the interview tonight by mentioning just offhand 50 years of experience, which is it's a long time objectively. Looking back, you've mentioned saving one client $10,000. You've talked about identifying proper formations, proper ways that companies can be structured, set up the paperwork for their business. Is there a thing that comes to mind that either this is how I want people to think of me when we work with me, that this story really illustrates it, or this was a lesson I learned the hard way, and this has really driven me forward to kind of on the path that I am and make sure I don't do that again?
Well, one of the things I get asked a lot when I'm talking to people is this: because I represent people before the IRS, they always say, what, people are scared of the IRS audits, and IRS audits are going up on this. And I always, in addition to what's happened in the past, I try to prepare people what's going in the future. And they just gave the IRS a whole bunch of money. There's something called, I don't know if you know what basis is. Basis is how much you have invested in your business, what your share of your business is worth if you cashed it out to dollars. And you're not allowed to take deductions below zero, basis of zero. Otherwise, if you take loss after loss after loss after year and year in losses, eventually you're going to run out of no basis left. And people are still taking a lot of losses on their personal returns. And the IRS is going after those people, and they're going after them. And they know they're losing millions and millions and millions of dollars a year because people are violating this rule. And some of the new things that are coming up are going to involve that, which is why it's so important to get a proper professional working with you to make sure that doesn't happen, and make sure that your basis worksheets and everything is correct. The other thing they always ask, well, what do they ask when an audit comes out, is another question I get a lot. And generally, the audits I've been to, the first two things that they ask for is, number one, we want to see your bank statements for the last 2 or 3 years. And the other thing is, if you're deducting mileage, I want to see the mileage logs, because a lot of people just make it up. If you can't produce that, they'll disallow the entire deduction, and that's one of the largest deductions on a tax return. So again, you have to know how to handle your paperwork to prevent things like this.
So you hit on what it would be like to be audited by the IRS. Is this an in-person event? Is this something that's handled remotely, virtually? Is this back and forth emails? If I get a notice that I'm audited, what does this mean for me? Obviously, I need to hire a professional like yourself, but am I going to go in front of an IRS member, or what do I need to know?
Well, the first thing I tell my clients is, I don't want you there. This is why you need to hire somebody to represent yourself, because when I have a client go in there, they will undoubtedly say something they shouldn't say and open up another can of worms. And that's why you want a representative, CPA, a lawyer, or an enrolled agent to represent you when you go in there. And they'll help you put, of course, what you need to try to win your case. And a lot of cases are winnable as long as all the paperwork's done correctly.
Good to know. Excellent to know. So taking a kind of a left turn here, we've talked a lot about tax, a lot about business formation, helping small business owners. This is very important, but heavy stuff. How do you get away? How do you relax? Or what do you do when you are not thinking about tax code?
I'm a DIY person at home. I love taking around the house, building things and remodeling things and working in the yard. That's the best de-stressor there is.
What are you working on currently?
Currently, I've been working on building myself a small gym. I've closed
Very
off
nice.
Lanai out there and then building a room out of it. So I tinker with things like that.
Excellent. Excellent. And I think we've covered a good amount of material, jumped around a bit, but what is something that I didn't ask you that I probably should have?
Oh, That's a good question because we've covered quite a bit. That's a very good question. My whole thing is that whether people learn this information from me or whether they learn it from somebody else, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm at the stage in my life where it's not about the money anymore. It's about how many people can I help improve their lives while I'm still around. And that's really what life is all about to me.
That's an excellent answer. Roger, where can our listeners find you if they want to connect, learn more, or perhaps take you? We have the information for the course, but if they want to kind of connect with you and perhaps do something else, what's the best place to do that?
My main corporate site is Seagull Technology. Seagull's spelled like the bird, SEAGULL. Technologies.com. It has links to everything I do. There's lots of free training out there. There's links to paid training. There's links to my YouTube channel and all the other various things that I've got out there for people. But I hope they'll take advantage of it.
Excellent. Roger, we will post all those. This has been a blast. Thank you so much for joining us. I wish you nothing but continued success and some amazing DIY projects and get more time off.
Thanks.